every Saturday. Local chefs create savory and artistic dishes for you to enjoy making in your own home. So add a new recipe to your collection that is sure to be a family favorite here at Scenic Vantage Point.
Welcome to What's Cooking at the Market with Port Huron Hospital. I'm Tammy Korchak from Port Huron Hospital, and I am here with our special guest, Chef Steve from Fuel Woodfire Grill here in Port Huron. And in our first segment, Steve prepared some very scrumptious salmon cakes. And in the next segment, we are going to be preparing, or Steve is going to be preparing their signature barbecue dish. And I'll tell you, when I saw this recipe, my mouth was watering. So I can't wait to see how you do this. So why don't you talk a little bit about what ingredients go into this then, Steve?
Okay, we have some butter. No oil is going to go into this at all.
Okay.
We're going to melt butter. Always in a kitchen, I always use unsalted butter. I always prefer to be able to control the salt myself. So we have butter, we have some fresh garlic cloves, an onion, tomato paste. We have apple cider vinegar,
okay.
Some Worcestershire sauce, just regular plain old ketchup.
Okay.
And then we have a medium brown sugar. It's got a little more molasses than a light brown sugar, but not quite as much as a dark.
Okay.
And then we have some dark chili powder, some ground cumin, and ground coriander. Those are the essential ingredients, besides the black cherry Faygo.
Okay.
As we were talking before, you can substitute for any type of soda or pop that you would want. If you prefer to use diet to reduce the calorie content or the sugar content, you can go ahead and do that as well.
Yeah, because the one thing, I can't get Faygo in Canada, so I guess I'm just going to have to wait in that line in the bridge to make sure I get the Faygo to make this recipe, I'm telling you.
Right. Okay, well, first thing, we're going to heat up our pot, which is already going here, and then we're going to melt the butter. Once the butter is pretty much melted through, so as that's melting, we're going to large chop, large dice our onion here. It doesn't have to be perfect or anything.
Yep.
I just cut the ends off, cut it in half.
Okay, yep, peel that away. Now, do you use a Spanish onion or just a large cooking onion for this?
Yep, either or, either or. And I always, I prefer to do a large rough chop on it, and the reason is because we're going to, not today, but when you would, if you were to do this at home, you would use a stick blender or a hand mixer or even a food processor.
Okay.
And the large pieces of onion are going to ensure that it's thoroughly blended.
Okay.
If you chop them too small, what's going to happen is they're going to end up missing the blade, and then your sauce is going to be real thick, and it's going to have chunks in it instead of being nice and smooth.
Okay. Now, do we want that on low, medium, or high heat? I know some people make the mistake of cooking things too high and then we burn.
Yep, it's all going to depend on your burner at home. Obviously, in a kitchen, we have a lot more BTUs, so it's more of like a medium heat. At home, it's probably going to be closer to a high heat. Okay. You want to sweat the onions and the garlic, which same thing with the garlic is just going to be rough chopped because it'll get pureed later.
Okay.
But you don't necessarily want them to brown.
Okay.
You just want them to sweat, and what that's going to do is going to release all of the flavors.
Okay.
And they're going to be translucent. You're going to be able, they're going to have like a clear color to them.
Okay. That's a new term for me, sweat the onions. I'd never heard that before. Okay. Learn something new every day. Now, Steve, tell me a little bit about what goes into your recipes in terms, how do you think of these recipes? Well, how do you come up with them?
That's a good question. When we were developing the menu for the restaurant, we kind of, the owner, Mike Taylor, and myself kind of threw back and forth a few different themes that we wanted to go with, and once we kind of stuck with one, I did a lot of research. I saw what other places were doing, and I wanted to try to keep along those lines, but twist it up a little bit. So I played with a lot of different recipes that I was familiar with and looked up some new ones and kind of tried to add my own twist to it, and whatever I felt tasted the best are the ones that we went with.
Excellent. Have you always had this knack for cooking, or is it just something that...
No, actually I haven't. You know, I went to culinary school at Schoolcraft College about 3 or 4 years ago. I finished. And ever since then, I've had the privilege to work under some really good chefs and learned a lot from them on how they do things. And a lot of it's hands-on, you know, being in the different restaurants and learning what everybody does differently.
Okay, good. Do you teach cooking? Because I could use a lesson or two.
I don't, but maybe I'll start now.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to hold you to it.
So when your onions and garlic have a nice clear color to them, what we're going to do is we're going to add the tomato paste, and this is called deglazing.
Deglazing?
I'm sorry. This is called penseing.
Oh, penseing.
That's
okay.
That's a French term, and what we're going to do is we're just going to cook the tomato paste slightly. So we're just going to mix it all in here and just bring it up to temp, and that's going to give a nice tomato base to our barbecue sauce.
Okay.
Once that has brought up to temperature and is nice and hot, which really only takes a minute, you do not want to burn the tomato paste because tomatoes will get a real bitter flavor to them once they're burned. Then we bring out the secret ingredient.
Wow.
I'm only making a half batch today. Normally in your batch that you have on your card, you would use the whole 2 liter.
Okay.
But once your tomato paste has heated through, you're going to add, and this is what is called deglazing. If you ever notice when you're cooking something in a pan or in a saute pan or something, it begins to stick. On a hot flame, you add the liquid, and what it's going to do is it's going to deglaze the bottom of the pan and pull all of the goodies that have stuck to the bottom off the bottom and incorporate back into the sauce.
Okay, okay.
So what we do here is just same thing. We're adding a cold product to what was hot, so we brought the temperature down. So what we're going to do is make sure that this is on a nice high heat so we can bring the temperature back up.
Okay.
And we're going to add our apple cider vinegar and our Worcestershire sauce. And you can add the ketchup as well. And what you do here is it's probably about a 25-minute simmer after this.
Okay.
And that's just to bring everything up to temp and then to go ahead and reduce it and make sure it thickens up nicely.
Okay. Do you have to stir it the whole time, or can you just leave it alone?
You can leave it. You want to check on it every couple of minutes to make sure it's not sticking on the bottom. But it's not going to burn unless you leave it there for quite some time.
So don't go do something for an hour and come back and expect it to be...
Correct.
Okay, good.
Yep. So then the only 2 ingredients that are left are our brown sugar and our spices here.
Okay.
And once that has thickened up, what we're going to do is we're going to melt the brown sugar in, because obviously you want the sauce to be nice and warm, so the brown sugar is going to melt.
Okay.
That's going to add to the texture and also to the sweetness of the sauce.
Okay.
Go
Now,
ahead.
what if someone, say a diabetic, wanted to modify this recipe just to meet their needs? Because of course they can't probably have a lot of sugar.
Right.
What about Splenda, brown sugar Splenda? Can we modify it that way?
Absolutely. And really, if you tasted them both side by side, it's not really going to make that big of a difference.
Sure, sure.
It's not the core of the sauce. It's just a component that goes with it.
Okay.
So you're still going to get the sweetness. It might just be a little bit different. But if you were to use a light brown sugar, it's going to be different as well.
Sure.
So, but absolutely, to monitor the sugar content or the calorie content, if you would like to use a sugar substitute, you can definitely do that.
Okay. And as I always say, anything in moderation. So I mean, a little bit. If it's the regular, it's probably not going to hurt at all. But if someone were really conscious about it, then. One other point that I want to make, folks, is I'm sure you've been here before. Beautiful area. Make sure you take advantage of the farmers market that's open every Tuesday and Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. and pick up some of that local fresh farm produce as well as the fresh baked goods. And make sure you check out Fuel the Grill with Steve, because I'm telling you, I can't wait to check it out.
Sounds good.
Okay. So now.
Yep, and then you let this simmer for about 20 or 25 minutes.
Okay.
It's going to thicken up, and then I did not bring a stick blender with me.
Okay.
But you can either dump it into a food processor and puree it up until it's got a nice smooth content, or if you have a stick blender, which we have a huge industrial one at the restaurant, and we make a giant pot of this because we go through so much of it. So
I'm sure.
You just puree it till it's nice and smooth, and it's all done.
Excellent, excellent. Is there any other tips that you can suggest in terms of cooking?
One thing that I would always say is what I realized is don't try to overdo it.
Okay.
Whether it's a sauce or just something plain. Don't try to overdo it. Keep it simple. Salt and pepper should go on almost everything.
Okay.
You'll really taste the difference if you just season things properly.
Okay.
And just take the time to focus on whatever you're making. If it's a burger, focus on the meat. Don't try and overdo it with other things.
Okay, excellent. Well, and folks, again, if you want to recap for the recipes, you all got the card today. And for those people at home, make sure you check out the websites, www.porthuronhospital.org and www.downtownporthuron.org. And this will also air on Channel 6 throughout the next week, and it will also be available on YouTube. So again, next week we will have Jim Dickinson, who's an IT analyst from our Port Huron Hospital implementation team, and he will be working with a chef from Tony's Food Paradise, and they are going to be preparing a Mediterranean salad and a salmon fillet. So I think I'm going to be here next Saturday so I can be in the audience to sample that as well.
Me too.
Yeah, come on out. Yeah, come on down. And again, Fuel Woodfire Grill, Steve, you've been a wonderful host. It's been a great pleasure working with you.
Thank you. You too.
And thank you to the audience for coming. Everyone had an opportunity to sample these wonderful things today, yes? So I can't wait. I get to sample mine, the fresh salmon one that he made, that's mine. So anyway, thank you for coming, and enjoy the week. And until our next program, be safe, be healthy, and ultimately be happy. Thank you.